YouTube, what is going on? My name is Corporate Serf, and today's video I'm super excited about. Right around February of this year, I swapped from Call of Duty gameplay to kovaaks aim and aim training content, and it started with bad handwriting and fun ideas. Later, I went to typed out information, kind of like PowerPoint presentations, and then I've even had offers for people to do like G effects with my videos and just like really scale up the quality. I'm gonna be honest though, that is not me. That is not the style of YouTube video that I enjoy. So we're going back to the roots. Bad handwriting, fun ideas. Okay, fun ideas you say. What's today's topic? Today's topic is tension. And no, this isn't the tension where at the family barbecue, Uncle Jerry punches your dad in the face. That's a different form of tension that I can't really help you with. Instead, today we will be talking about tension in aim. Alright, so the foundation of what we're going to talk about lies within these two characters here. We have Pathfinder and we have Wraith. Now I'm going to give you an example here, right? Mr. Pathfinder has a little grappling hook, right? Let's say that Mr. Pathfinder, let's say Mr. Pathfinder is on this hill, right? And he wants to grapple and gain a bunch of momentum because he's trying to slide away from some enemies over here. Right, we got this long sweeping motion, reasonably high speed, but he loses velocity. And then we have Wraith. Wraith has the smallest hitbox in the game. She has like dash or portal away potential. So she's aggressive. She's in your face. She can really like AD spam on you. Some close range movements. Okay, so we've got this example of Pathfinder. We know that he's running away from the enemy, so he wants to grapple down this hill. It's going to be relatively fast, but really it's a long, consistent motion. And then so we know that we're going to aim at him, right? And I've got my grip for this aim. The way that we're going to think about this, both for the Wraith example, but then also for here with Pathfinder, is two forms of tension. So the red is going to be downward. The word I want you to think of with downward tension is control. And then the blue here is going to be lateral. We're going to think about this as stability. What I'm saying here is an oversimplification of deeper concepts. I just kind of want to illustrate this through my perspective so that you guys may be able to understand it for yourself and take it a step further. The other thing is, since we're branching a little bit out of kovaaks, it's important to note, like with Apex, there are other hugely important factors to your aim. We're talking about mouse control for these specific situations, right? But there's also your positioning, your movement, like your movement aim, your dodge. There's so many factors to how you aim in these situations. I'm only talking about the mouse control perspective. Okay, all that being said, with our downward control and our lateral stability, let's take a small look here. So you can see in this blue, it's not perfectly circled, but there's my pinky and my thumb squeezing across my hand, right? There's lateral pressure there, lateral side to side pressure in that squeeze. Then here, with my middle three fingers, there's downwards control. I have a little groove above my mouse wheel. I am applying a set of constant pressure from my middle finger. My ring finger is going to apply pressure when I ADS, and then my index finger is also going to apply pressure. Okay, but this is somewhat of an oversimplification, right? We can talk about our fingers here. Yeah, pressure from the sides, pressure downward. Okay, but like, how does that play into things? Well, let's look at the red here, right? If you take your palm of your hand and just place it flat on your mouse pad or on your desk, and you kind of curl your index finger up a little bit, so everything else is flat, but there's some bend to your index finger, and now push down hard into your pad. Push down hard into your desk, just like kind of like you would left click on your mouse. You can feel that by pressing your index finger, it works all the way through your arm into your bicep, right? Your bicep is supporting your index finger in that push. Now, if you push your middle three fingers together, you can still see that's true, right? That, like, when you push all three of those middle three fingers, you can feel it in your arm. So while I simplify downward control to these middle three fingers, there is tension in your arm to support that process. Okay, blue circle, now let's talk about lateral stability here. If you have a mouse in front of you, I want you to pick it up and I want you to squeeze the sides with your thumb and your pinky. Now, if you don't do 1 through 1 and you have this finger on the side, that's fine too. Squeeze with your thumb, your pinky, and your ring finger. While you're squeezing the mouse from the sides, but especially those of you that are just using your pinky and your thumb, what do you feel? You should feel that your wrist is becoming tighter. There is tension in your wrist, right? So relative to these 5 fingers, there is tension that is supported through your arm and through your wrist. Now another example for a different thing, because this is important to say too. Now I want you to go back to laying your palm flat on your mouse pad. I also want you to lay your forearm flat on the mouse pad. Now, sitting up straight, shrug your shoulder up just enough to lift your wrist and your forearm. Shrug your shoulder up like that. You can feel now how there's some tension in your shoulder, right? So now if you kind of swing your arm to the side, you can sweep left and right, you feel tension there in your shoulder. Okay, when we do large sweeping motions, you should feel tension in your shoulder. If you're playing Snake Track Advanced or Snake Track Intermediate or Novice or whatever rank you are, any of them, these long sweeping motions, you should feel tension in your shoulder as you go, left to right or right to left. Okay, so that's 3 places that we just talked about tension, where you can feel tension throughout your entire unit of your arm, wrist, and fingertips. Now let's talk about how you need to be aiming on this Pathfinder. Step number 1 has to be speed matching. Pathfinder is running away from someone shooting at him. He is going down the hill. He's going to be going fast. If you cannot keep your crosshair up with him, you cannot hit shots. Your first priority here should be speed matching. Now, relative to your tension, do you need downward control to help you speed match him? No. Why would you push down with any of these 3 fingers when he is going down this hill? Hey everybody, I'm editing right now. I think it's really important that I say something. I say don't press down, but you're still clicking, right? You have to click to ADS, you have to click to fire if you're trying to, put damage on this Pathfinder. When I'm saying pressing down, I'm saying adding force through your click, right? Because you can click, but then you can click with force. That's really stupid if you're pressing in with your middle finger, like on how mine's above this groove. If you're just pressing down, your crosshair is going to lag behind him. But can you just not grip your mouse at all? Can you just, what if I had only my palm and the rest of my fingers were just levitating, That I'm not going to have enough control to keep up with him either. So that's where this blue circle comes into play. Your speed matching is supported by this stability from your pinky and your thumb. And I'm saying pinky and thumb, but you're also kind of adding tension in your wrist too, right? Why does your wrist need to flex to match the speed of this target? Your shoulder and your arm can match the speed, this wide motion, much better, right? If you are using your wrist for this motion, you're going to reach a point of lockout. You're going to reach a point of, limitation earlier than if you just use your arm on this wide motion. So me personally, this Pathfinder, I want to match his speed. I'm going to feel tension in my shoulder to help me with this sweeping motion. My wrist is going to be a little bit tighter because I'm squeezing from the sides. I'm not pushing down with my middle 3 fingers here, and I'm keeping pace with him. But then he starts to slow down, right? There's kind of a point, and maybe it's here with this purple line, that the target kind of slows down, and we need more control, right? He's decelerating. We need to be more precise on him. He's probably farther away as well, so he seems smaller. So step number 2 is a shift in tension, right? This is the shift. Now we need to take some tension away from that wrist, take pressure off of the sides so that your wrist can flex to make an adjustment. Your wrist is going to help you with this whole process of him decelerating, and maybe he jumps, maybe he changes directions, right? You want some finer control from your wrist there. And if you've done this right and your shoulder was helping you speed match and you're using your arm to do this long motion, you have plenty to work with from your wrist. You haven't flexed your wrist completely. Okay, so let's say now at the end of this hill here, there's kind of like a platform here, and maybe it looks weird like this, but Pathfinder's down here now, and he's gonna change directions. His momentum is going a different way now. It's a weird drawing, but just stay with me. Now you need your fingertips to help you make this small little adjustment. So everything I did right there with shift right there, I really kind of went on a tangent about form isolation. Let's go back to talking about tension and kind of come back to this point here. Coming back to this purple line where, we're seeing this shift, we're using our wrist now and also using our fingertips, but the point of all this is we need more control. The first half of this, his movement was predictable, but now he's with this direction change, he can be very elusive with that. So we want more downward force. So to recap this picture here, where the start of this was tension in like your shoulder and then also tension from the sides, right? Now when we end this, where he's like making these small little jukes, from the base of the hill, that's where we're applying downward force and control. And in that respect, you don't need the pressure, as much pressure from the sides. You want to take some off so your wrist can help you too. Okay, we've really covered most of this through that first example with Pathfinder, but I think it's going to be a little bit beneficial just to kind of cover this one more time, just to make sure we understand everything. Looking at our example here with Wraith, we understand that she's going to be AD spamming, right? She's not going down a hill like Pathfinder. She's not having these wide ranges of motion if she's fighting you in something like R5 Reloaded. So this example, if you can picture R5 Reloaded, a one-on-one gunfight where for the majority of this gunfight, she's just AD spamming. So number one this time, let's talk about your form on this, okay? Because I think that's pretty important. So 1v1 here, you're probably ADS. Maybe she's going in and out of ADS. She's not doing large ranges of motion. If she is close to you, like very, very close, you will feel your shoulder and your arm. With a close perspective, if she's just up in your face, you're going to need to use your arm and your shoulder because you have to use more of your mouse pad, right? So in R5 Reloaded, there's plenty of times where, you're going to get barrel stuffed by a Wraith here, and, she's back and forth. Maybe she's like tap strafing across your close perspective, right? You should be able to feel your arm and shoulder work. And, we're talking about if you're using your shoulder, feeling the tension there like we did with the shrug. But you can feel on this close perspective, 1v1, your arm working. If she is far away, though, why are you using your shoulder? Why are you using your arm? You're on way too low of a sensitivity if she's far away and you still have to use like a lot of your arm and shoulder. And remember, we're talking about strictly AD spam, right? In this case, you need to feel a ton of your wrist and fingertips. Number two then here, now that we're ready with our form, let's talk about pressure. Okay, so now that we're talking about pressure, it was important to remember what we're doing here with our form because it also applies to our tension a little bit. I think it's easier to first talk about the far, so like with your wrist and fingers. Of course, with this like movement that's not using much of your mouse pad, having this downward control, some downwards tension, of course, still supported through your arm is important. If she's strictly AD spamming, why do you need to be death gripping from the sides? Your wrist really does not need to be tight, and if your wrist is too tight because you're squeezing too hard, you might not be able to flex your wrist to make these adjustments like you need to. So in R5 Reloaded with a far Wraith that's AD spamming, we want to be applying pressure, a decent amount of pressure downward. And remember, some of that pressure is with your ADS. It's also with your index finger. But then like somebody like me with a 1-3-1 grip, I'm also like able to apply some more with my middle finger. Okay, so the next part, this is where things get slightly tricky, right? Even though this Wraith, on this x-axis is not really having much deviation, the z-axis, where she's like, coming closer to you, if she tap strafes at you to the point that you need to use your arm, you need to use a lot of your mouse pad, the first part of that motion, let's see, she's tap strafing left to right across your screen. This particular motion, kind of dynamically, will be supported from tension in your shoulder and some squeeze from the sides. Because you're sweeping across so much of your mouse pad, it's healthy technique to have good tension, good squeeze from the sides on this. But then once she's there, once she's like done with that tap strafing moment, like once she's, maybe she's got her Mastiff and she's just there. This is where it's nice to, if you can, shift tension back into your middle of 3 fingers. Okay, so Wraith started today. She's tap strafed across now to B. This is a large distance, right? It makes sense that we had our arm working, tension in the shoulder, and we had pressure from the sides. But now that she's here, because this is you right here. Now that she's here, her motion is just going to be this, right? Something like that. So in this portion right here, it makes sense to try to shift that tension from your wrist and from your shoulder back into your fingertips and your arm, right? Having more downward control here. Is all of this kind of coming together? Am I hopefully making sense here? So with this topic and what I try to do with my coaching in kovaaks is I try to find scenarios where we can, show the difference between the Wraith and the Pathfinder from the beginning. So my goal with kovaaks, but also like R5, is that intentionally, when we're working together on this, we're thinking about when to apply different forms of pressure. We're really thinking about each process on each scenario. It can feel overwhelming at first, really, but at the end of the day, this intentional practice that we do in kovaaks or even in R5, then that becomes intuitive. It becomes second nature for you. To the point that if you're playing Apex ranked, you should not be thinking about the tension differences between these two, right? If you're benchmarking in Voltaic, you should not be thinking about tension differences. But with intentional practice on, certain kovaak scenarios, or also an environment like R5 Reloaded, we can really think about this tension from a mouse control perspective. But like I said at the beginning of this video, this is not a replacement for, your strafe aim, your positioning, your overall movement, right? There are tons of factors to your success in a game like Apex where you just watching Corporate Serf on YouTube, it's not going to carry you. You can only brute force mouse control so far. There's also like intangibles on a social side of like being a good teammate, being able to take accountability, being coachable. Like there's so many factors to being good at Apex. So with those obvious disclaimers aside, I want you to improve your mouse control, understand your tension, and be the best aimer that you can possibly be. Thank you all so much for supporting me on this channel. We just hit 5,000 subscribers. It really means the world to me. Thank you all so much for your support, and I will catch you all later. Peace.